Welcome to Cinemophile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Caspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemophilepod.com. On the morning of October 7, 2023, Israeli-American Liat Atzili and her husband Aviv were at home when Hamas attacked their kibbutz. By nightfall, Liat and Aviv are captives in Gaza, along with 250 other people, 12 of whom, like Liat, are American citizens. Caught between international diplomacy and a rapidly escalating war, their family must face their own uncertainty and conflicting perspectives in the pursuit of Liat and Aviv's release. The film is a beautiful, told story of family, politics, and perspective. We're joined today by the director of Holding Liat, Brandon Kramer. Brandon, welcome to Cinemophile.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
What a powerful film on many, many different levels. Obviously, this very personal story, horrific tragedy, unspeakable, despicable crime that occurred on October 7th, and to see all of the ripple effect of that it's had on the families, on people of Israel, the people of Gaza, across the world, really, in so many different ways. But it's a deeply personal story. What was your way in? How did you connect and become a part of this project?
Yeah, look, I'm related to Liat and Aviv. We're distant relatives. My first time visiting Israel over 20 years ago was staying on Liat's parents' kibbutz and staying with Liat's sister in Tel Aviv. So I know the family well. I was at a bat mitzvah with them 2 months before October 7th, and our family members were taken captive, and her family was immediately thrust into the epicenter of a geopolitical crisis. The whole world was looking at the hostage families and trying to make sense of, where to go from here. And we felt this responsibility to pick up our camera and not really knowing it was going to be a film, but just, documenting it for, if nothing else, history's sake or for the family's sake. What we were bearing witness to within days of them being taken was so much more complicated than any of the narratives being shared around the hostages. And, you have to remember at this point, we're at the beginning of, the horrific violence that was about to unfold in Gaza against Palestinians. You still have, many, many people held captive in Gaza. And we felt that if horrific acts of violence were going to be perpetrated in response to October 7th, then it's important that the public understands how, a family like the Bain and Atzili family actually feels. And Liat's father, within days of her being taken, was very vocal in saying, I do not want my daughter and son-in-law's captivity to be used as justification for any violence against Palestinians in Gaza. And the fact that his family did not agree with him taking this kind of political stance in this moment, the kind of debates and fractures that were occurring within this one family unit, we just felt like we were witnessing something very, very important. And, in a moment of extraordinary polarization and division where people are not talking about this conflict, I think this film is proving to be a space where people with very different ideologies and views can convene in the same movie theater and have a conversation.
This is the one of the many things that I truly appreciate and cherish about documentary films and documentary filmmakers is it's an opportunity to give perspective, to give a sort of a parameters of a story. It's also the ability to focus in on the things that we relate to as human beings, the stories told amongst family members, and then allow it to be able to broaden out into a bigger, wider story is the embodiment of what this film is. And by doing so, I think a lot of people watching this will be hearing new things in regards to what's happened in Israel in relation to the Palestinians. So, and both ways, in both directions. So I just, that's really so much of the power of the film through this family's journey. And I hesitate to use that word. That almost sounds too rosy. Just this travail, this crucible that they go through in this story. There are too many people to, well, I mean, Yehuda, who is, you just mentioned, is kind of a focus for a lot of reasons, but I was really drawn to his wife, Chaya, who it's easy to see her as the moon in this universe of calm and love. There's so much there about her that I mean, there's so many people you can, you're drawn to in this story. But let's go back in terms of what happened on October 7th. I'm going to dive a little bit into the politics of it. You can't talk about this without talking about Benjamin
Course.
Netanyahu and all this and the stuff and how it rolls out and the cabinet that he has surrounded himself with, his own travails with the law. Those are all very integral and important parts of the story without losing sight of the personal side of all this.
Yeah, I mean, the Bain and Atzili family is a very political family. They have very strong political views. They always have.
Yeah.
They have very strong political disagreements. They always have. And I think, it's funny, like some people come up to me after the film and they're like, I'm so grateful that you made a film about this and it's not about politics. And then I have other people that come up to me and say, I'm so glad you made such a political film. So I think it's in the sort of the eye of the beholder. But I think for me, what was interesting was politics is a way that this family processes grief. And, I'm a firm believer that in a moment where dialogue is in a state of paralysis around this conflict, which it really is, not opening up these kind of spaces for conversation across lines of difference is actually signing on to the status quo and continuing down the path that we are on, which is horrible for everybody, Israelis, Palestinians, uh, Jewish diaspora, Arab Americans, it's just a horrific situation for everybody. And so my feeling was, and my brother's feeling was that there's something about a family unit that provides a kind of frame for audiences that feel very differently to be able to be able to open up, to be able to see how an uncle within a family might feel radically different from how they feel, but be open to their perspective. There are perspectives in this film that make me uncomfortable, that I do not agree with. But I don't see my job as a filmmaker, as a documentary filmmaker, to use protagonists in my films to advance a particular political ideology that I hold. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with films that do that. Those films have a place and they're important. It's just not the kind of stories or films that I like to make. I'm really interested in stories that have a lot of openness, really embrace contradictions and complexity, that give audiences a lot of space to have their own experiences. And I've found that when you tell a story like that, it invites people in, and that's what we're seeing. When we premiered this film at Berlin, the very first person that asked a question about this movie ever in the life of this film, which now we've screened it 100 times, but the first screening was a Lebanese man. And he raised his hand and he said, I've never met an Israeli person in my life. I came to this film because I was curious. And this family has shown me that there is light in the darkness. And I would like to ask if I can come on stage and hug each member of the family. Liat's family was on stage with me. And in front of over 500 people, this man walked up from the back of the room to the front of the room and gave them a hug, and the entire audience applauded. And that kind of
Yeah.
human connection and empathy
Yeah.
has been happening at screening after screening after screening. It's not to say that there also hasn't been people who are upset, who are arguing, who come up to me and express their discomfort with characters or moments in the film, because that happens also. But even when that's happening, it's happening. At least it's happening. At
Yeah.
least people are like sharing in person in a
Yeah.
movie theater,
Yeah.
which, I'm not a very religious person, but if I think of like a place that I consider, a sanctuary, I consider a movie theater a sanctuary.
Yeah.
So,
And well, so much of what you're saying is a reflection of the family internal dynamics of this family. And I think we as humans tend to follow the temperature in the room, if you will, or we react to the temperature in the room based on this kind of a situation with the people who are most intimately invested in what's happening. And they disagree, they love each other, just what you said. I mean, and it's Netta in his reaction is completely understandable, completely. Who amongst us wouldn't have the same reaction he did? If you didn't, you're not being honest about it. And also, it seems like it feels like, and I was looking through the credits of the film, you pulled in a lot of really well-regarded people into the process of making this film. And one of my favorite documentary filmmakers of all time, and I always butcher his name, Rahanan Alexandrovich, who you brought in for story consulting. There's other people that you brought in, but for me, he's been a window into this world that I never would have had before. So glad to see you're working with these kind of people. So,
yeah, I mean, Renan was literally the first
yeah,
advisor that we brought onto the team because, the law in these parts, the viewing
yes,
booth,
yes,
the inner tour, these are films that really take a deeply thoughtful, empathetic, but also critical look at, Israeli society, at what the consequences of policies of propaganda have on people's lives. And I think Renan, you have to remember with this movie, we're throwing ourselves into making it rapidly and
yeah,
we're filming things every day. We would wake up not knowing what we're documenting. And it's really difficult to make sense of what you're filming when you're in that kind of a
yeah,
maelstrom. And Renan and Carol Deisinger and Gordon Quinn and Darren Aronofsky,
yeah,
all of the different people who were consulting, advising, executive producing on this film were basically people who we really trusted, their storytelling sensibilities, that we would share sequences, raw footage with, and they were helping us make sense of what we were documenting, in particular because we're living in a moment where victimhood is can so easily the documentation of victims can so easily perpetuate
yeah,
violence. I felt very strongly that I want to be really honest about this film. I don't want to gloss over anything, but I'm not going to make a film that is going to feed cycles of violence and
right,
revenge. I'm not going
right.
to do that. Having advisors to look at your material fresh outside of being in the thick of it sort of helped me understand what we were bearing witness to.
Well, it's a beautiful film as I say often, so many different levels. Getting to know the family, the aftermath of which, going to the kibbutz where this all happened, that sort of that, I don't know if it's cleansing, I don't know if it's healing, cathartic maybe is a better way to put it, and to see just how each one of the people you focus on in the film have time to breathe, have time to kind of let all of these cross current of emotions and feelings play out in a way we can all relate to. And again, the beauty of film. That's the beauty of a story. Is going back to the time when we gathered around the campfire to tell each other stories. This is what this is.
No, I really appreciate that. And you're talking about Renan. I'll just share, one of my inspirations for this film, which is a film that not many people have seen. It's a film called Crisis, which was directed by Robert Drew in the 1960s. And it's a story where he followed in real time the integration of schools in Alabama. And he made this very bold choice to follow the story from He had one crew in the Oval Office with the president, John F. Kennedy. It's actually the only time an American president has been filmed in an observational way, navigating a crisis in real time. He had a camera crew with Robert Kennedy, who was the Attorney General. He had a camera crew with the first black students that were going to walk through the school doors.
Right.
And in my opinion, most boldly, he had a camera crew with Governor George Wallace.
Wow.
And that of all the it's the just the mere act at that moment of time of following a story in real time from different perspectives was already a radical act of empathy, in my opinion. And then to portray how they got access to the governor, and then to, the governor does not come across well, but the film is very fair to him.
Yeah.
And it never looks down the lens of the camera at him. It just shows him how he's acting in that moment. And that film, in many ways, was a roadmap for us to telling our own family's story in this movie.
I'd say it would be as rare as hen's teeth for a successful film to tip its hand in a story like this. It's just not worth it. It's not worth doing because at the end of the day, it will, in many ways, detract from maybe everything else that's great about it. And that's a hard thing for a filmmaker probably to hold on to when it looks like you might be giving the bad person kind of an easy out. But it's in the long run, we're all better for it. We're all better off for it. So yeah, congratulations. And the film again is shortlisted for an Oscar. Congratulations on that. And the accolades have just been pouring in. It's just well deserved, Brandon. Congratulations on holding Liat. All the best. I'm sure good things will happen for you. So thank you, Brandon Kramer, for coming on and joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mike. It means a lot. And if anybody listening wants to see the film, it just opened at the Film Forum in New York City last weekend, which is a dream come true for me. One of my favorite movie theaters on planet Earth. And this weekend, I'm in LA right now. It's opening at the Laemmle, Glendale, and Royal. And so, it's an independent film. We're independent filmmakers, and we're doing a self-release because, stories about Israel-Palestine are really hard to get out into the world right now.
Yeah.
And so if you want to see the film, come out and see it in a movie theater.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brandon Kramer.
I can feel how the film landed with you on a personal level, and that means a lot.
Thank you. You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.